Hey fifth graders, it's Mrs. Burke here, back with another math video lesson. Hope you had a great weekend. We're going to be wrapping up our work with multiplying fractions. So today we're going to move into multiplying mixed numbers, which is a little bit trickier than just multiplying fractions. There's a few extra steps that are involved. So how can I multiply mixed numbers? There are actually a number of strategies you can choose from. Today we're gonna go over 4 different ways you can multiply mixed numbers. So if there's one way that you just feel super comfortable with, it's accurate for you, and it's just kind of like your go-to method, then by all means use it. But I think it's important that you just see the different methods, because for myself, I choose my method based on the actual numbers that I'm going to be multiplying, whether I'm multiplying 2 mixed numbers or a whole number in a mixed number or a fraction in a mixed number. That's how I determine which strategy. So I just want to go through each of these options with you. So the 4 ways we can multiply mixed numbers: you can use a model, you can rename your mixed number as an improper fraction and then multiply, you can rename a whole number, and you can use a distributive property. So we'll highlight each one of these strategies as we go through them. So let's start with using a model. If I need to multiply, say, a mixed number and a fraction, I like to use a model for this. I'm going to start by drawing a model for my mixed number, in this case, which is 2.5. So I'm going to draw 2 holes, and then I'm going to need an extra half. So I'm going to split all of these into halves, and I'm going to shade 2 of them. 1 hole, 2 holes, and a half. Now I'm going to multiply this by 3/4. So I'm going to now cut those into fourths. So I'll cut this into fourths, this into fourths, and this into fourths. And I'm going to represent 3 of the fourths. So here I'm going to show 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Then in this hole, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And then on this hole, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And we talked about modeling mixed numbers the other day, so you should feel somewhat familiar with that. Now I need to figure out what's my product. So first I'm going to determine my denominator, and the denominator is decided by looking at a whole and counting the total number of parts. So in one case I divided it into halves, but then I went and multiplied it by fourths. So now you're going to notice that every whole has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So that's going to be my denominator. Now, yes, there's 8 here, 8 here, and 8 here, but they're not 24ths. My whole is not split into 24 pieces. My whole is just split into 8 pieces, so they're 8ths. Now, how many of my 8ths were counted in both the 2.5 and the 3/4, or double shaded? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have 15/8. Now that is an improper fraction, so I'm going to turn it back into a mixed number. So how many holes can I make out of 15/8 if each hole has 8 parts? 1 hole. And then how many are still remain? Well, 2 holes would be 16 parts. I have almost 2 holes, so I have actually 7/8. So 2.5 times 3/4 equals 1 7/8. That's how I do it with a model. I'm going to show you one, give it a try, and then I'll go over it with you. So how would you model 1/4 times 1 1/3? And I'll remind you, you want to start by drawing your mixed number first, and then shade appropriately 1 whole and 1/3. Once you have that done, cut that, each whole, into fourths and shade 1 of the fourths. All right, if you need to pause, you can press pause. Otherwise, we'll get going. So I'm gonna model 1 1/3. Here's one whole. This whole will be in thirds. So I'm gonna make everything thirds. Thirds and thirds. Now I'm gonna shade, trying to get some colors. One whole thing, and then an extra third for 1 1/3. And now I'm gonna cut my 1 1/3 into fourths. Halves, thirds there, halves, thirds, fourths. And I'm gonna shade one of the fourths in both. 1, 1. So let me first find my denominator to get my product. When I look at my whole, how many pieces do I have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So these are 12ths. And now I'm gonna count how many of my 12ths were shaded twice. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 12ths would be my answer. I can simplify by dividing my numerator and my denominator by 4, and it simplifies to 1/3. Okay? So that's how you can multiply a mixed number when it's a mixed number times a fraction. Now, let's say we have two mixed numbers. This might be a little trickier to model. So with this, I would choose the strategy renaming my mixed number. Okay, I wouldn't model this. I would just rename both mixed numbers. And you know what? For me, this strategy, renaming as a mixed number, seems to work really easily no matter what the fractions or numbers are. So this is a good one to practice. 4 2/5 times 1 1/2. In order to rename this, I have to make it improper. So I'm gonna multiply my whole number times my denominator. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then I'm gonna add my extra 2 parts to the 20. So it's 22. So I have 22 parts. And what size are they? Fifths. So 22 fifths. Now I'm gonna multiply it by 1 1/2. So I'm again gonna multiply my denominator times my whole number. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus my extra 1 is 3. So I have 3, and these are halves. 3 halves. Now to get my product, I simply multiply my numerators together. 22 times 3, 22, 44, 66. 5 times 2 is 10. This is an improper fraction because my numerator is way bigger than my denominator. So I'm gonna make as many wholes out of 10 parts that I can until I get to 66. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 would give me 6 wholes. And then I would have 6 left over, right? But I can divide both 6 and 10 by 2. So I'm gonna be left with 6 and 3 fifths as my final product. All right, your turn. 2 1/4 times 1/3. For this question, we already have one of them as a fraction. So you're just going to rename your 2 1/4 by multiplying your denominator by your whole number and adding the additional 1 from your numerator. Okay, give it a try. Okay, so I have my denominator times my whole, or 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 more from my numerator would be 9, and my denominator doesn't change, it's 9/4. Times 1/3 is already a fraction, I can leave it, 1/3. Multiply my numerators, 9 times 1 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. I can divide both of these by 3. So I'm gonna be left with 3/4 as a product. So this strategy, renaming your mixed number, is probably gonna be the most efficient and accurate one. So try this one a few times. All right, now I'm gonna show you, well, what if there's a whole number? a mixed number times a whole number. Say 15 wholes times 1 1/4. What you can do in this situation is turn your whole number into a fraction. Now, how do I do that? Easy. Remember Mr. Corso's golden rule. A fraction line is a division sign. So what can I make this as a fraction? 15 divided by what number will still give me a value of 15? The answer is always 1. 15 divided by 1 is still 15. So I can just make this my new fraction. Now, 1 4/5 is a mixed number, so I do have to rename that. So this is kind of like a mixture of strategy that we just did with this new strategy of making this a whole. So I have 15 wholes or ones, and now I'm going to rename 1 4/5. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. Oop. And then my denominator does not change. 15 times 9. Well, 15 times 10 is 150. Take a 15 away, you're going to have 135 fifths, okay? So now you're going to have to rename this into a mixed number. So 5 times what is going to get you to 135? Well, I know that 20 wholes would be 100, right? 100 parts, and then you have an extra 35, which would be 7 wholes. So it would be 100, hold on, it would be, 27 and 5, wait, 27, oh, just 27 wholes. Sorry about that. 27 wholes, or 135 divided by 5, you get 27. Okay? One more of that type. 12 times 1/5. Now this one will be easier because our 1/5 is already a fraction. So the only thing we have to do is change our whole 12s into a fraction. How do I make a whole number a fraction? I give it a denominator of 1. And now I'm already ready. Multiply my numerators. 12 times 1 is 12. Multiply my denominators. 12 fifths. Rename it as a mixed number. 5, 10 would be 2 wholes. I'd have 2 parts left over, and those parts are the size of fifths. So 2 and 2 fifths, which is equivalent to 12 fifths. All right, our last strategy is the distributive property. So here you're going to break up your whole number, and then you're going to break up your fraction, but you're going to multiply both of them by 4. So instead of saying 5 1/10 times 4, I'm going to say, I'm going to split this up into 5 wholes plus 1/10. And I'm going to multiply both times 4. So first, 5 times 4 is 20. Next, 1/10 times 4, and remember I can put this 4 over 1 equals 4/10. What do I do with my 2 parts? Well, what do I do here? I add them together. That's what I'm going to do here. 20 plus 4/10 equals 20, and 4/10. I can divide both by 2, and then I would get 20 and 2 fifths. Okay, so you just split up the whole number and then the fraction. Try this one. Eight wholes times 3 1/2. You're going to split up your mixed number into the whole number and then the fraction. So my 3 1/2 becomes 3 wholes and 1/2, right? I'm going to times each part by 8. So first, 8 times 3, 24. Then 8 times 1/2. Remember, I can just put a denominator of 1 equals 8/2. 8/2 remain renamed. 8 divided by 2 is 4 wholes with no fractions. Now I have to add these two together. 24 plus 4 equals 28. Okay, so this is a lot because there's so many different strategies to choose from, but play around with it. You know, give each one a try. And if you find one that you feel much more comfortable with, just stick with that. Don't feel like you have to, you know, master all of these right away. As you practice more and more, you'll get a little bit more comfortable with each one. But definitely find one that works for you well every time, so you can always lean on that one. It's probably going to be renaming your mixed number as an improper fraction. All right, so that would be our green questions. These. When you multiply 4 times your whole number times your denominator, add your numerator. This will probably be the strategy that works most easily, most often. All right, so good luck. I'll be back on Wednesday with another video that's going to get you prepared for your end of unit assessment. I'm really proud of all your hard work. I've loved chatting with some of you through the Google Meets, and keep up the good work. Okay, guys, talk to you soon. Take care.